next presenter, composer and musician Joe Trapanese, has film score credits including Tron Legacy, Straight Outta Compton, The Greatest Showman, and Oblivion. So many of us would love to work on film scores, and in this session, Joe will share his perspective on successfully writing multiple genres of music, orchestrating symphonies, and building sounds from the ground up using synthesis.
Hey everyone, this is Joe Trapanese here in my home studio, locked down. I'm an audio guy, so I've done the best I can with the video here, but this is certainly not my forte. So I have to thank you for bearing with me, but hopefully the audio sounds great as always. Want to thank my friends at Moog for inviting me to be a part of this and inviting me to check out their new Moog 1, which is phenomenal. I'm having a blast with it. I'd love to take a few minutes today to show you how you can incorporate the Moog 1 into your workflow similar to how I do it. There are going to be people out there who do things very differently from me, and that's great. But this is just a little insight into how my brain works and how I've been starting to incorporate the Moog 1 into my new films. So to give you an example here, we're going to work on a Pro Tools session together. We're going to open up a cue from one of my old films from several years ago called Allegiant. Very proud of that soundtrack. It came out really great, recorded in London with some of the world's best musicians, mixed by some incredible people, and just, big thanks to the whole team on that for helping me get there. So I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into that. So we're going to open up a cue called Plasma Globes, but we're actually going to start from a different place than the full cue. You're not going to see the full cue until later. We're going to start from what I call the piano sketch. Oftentimes we work on really crazy deadlines. Things are really tight, and we have a limited amount of time to deliver. So how do you do all the stuff that needs to be done to get a cue across the finish line? Well, you need to break it into manageable portions. And for me, being a pianist, coming from playing piano, one of the tricks I have is to actually start at the piano, to start writing. In fact, you'll see here in my studio, I have my Rhodes in here, this beautiful red Rhodes, this custom instrument for me. That I love getting inspired by. It's awesome to have something that gives you feedback, whether it's a Rhodes, a Moog, a Steinway, an instrument that has the ability to converse with you. I find the computer most of the time, you could input into it, but it's not really having a conversation with you. When you sit down at a piano or at a synthesizer, you could have a conversation with it where when you play something, it changes how you interpret it, what you're feeling. So it really changes the emotion. So again, one of the ways for me to break something down into manageable chunks is to focus on the pure composition. And I noticed this years ago when I was trying to write a really large action cue, and I was trying to compose, do sound design, orchestrate, do everything at once. And it took me so long to get the job done when I realized I could get things done much faster if I simply wrote what I wanted to intend to feel musically apart from everything else. So that's how I approached the cue we're going to look at today. So if you see my Pro Tools session here, you'll see these blue tracks here. These are my sketch tracks. There's just a simple piano track on it. So if I go ahead and play this track, it's a really simple piano sound, right? Not much there to work with, but what it allows me to do is to get my ideas down. So I've already gotten the ideas down here. We've saved us some time here. We can see here, these are some long flowing chords. See a little mistake there, I'll fix that. And then we have this arpeggiated pattern. So what I'd like to do today is to start with the Moog 1, commit some sounds to audio to get them into the computer, to get them to get them committed to audio so that we could keep working with them later and have several layers of our Moog 1, and then we'll do some orchestration together. So we are now going to take some of this MIDI and send it to the Moog 1 and have it play back sounds. I'm going to record that as audio so I could commit it for the rest of history into the computer. So one of the things I love about the Moog 1 are these performance sets here. I love these performance sets because it allows me to find the sounds that I love, save them into a place I could access really easily, very quickly, and hop around from track to track, from preset to preset, working very efficiently. So again, that's kind of one of the names of the game in film music, right? We need to work very quickly. So anything that could help get us there is awesome. Great. So this is working. And what I might want to do, since my pattern's already arpeggiated, I'm going to turn the arpeggiator off. I might actually turn off these effects too. Let's see. Oh, I like that reverb. Might be this guy. So I might, that's a really nice effect. I might actually just change the mix here so it's not as huge. And also make it not quite as long. That's kind of the pattern, so just going to make sure it works great. I'm going to turn down the feedback. Whoop, too much. I love how easy this is. I think one of the coolest things about the Moog 1 is using these little more buttons. You know, you can get to all these presets that are just one knob. You know, you're not going through too many embedded menus. For someone like me who grew up without synthesizers and came to synthesizers later, you know, I started making music in the computer. When I started getting into analog synths, I fell in love with mono synths because they were so simple. One knob, one function. And so I've carried that aesthetic to me when I start playing around with these poly synths. I love how approachable the Moog 1 is. It allows me to almost get that exact same vibe as I did with, you know, something like a mini Moog where it's one knob, one function. Using these more buttons here, you could very quickly get into that same mindset. Okay, so let's go ahead and track this. Great, that's working. Put this into record. Let the reverb clear out. And we're going to go ahead and record this. While this is tracking, you want to hear a little bit about how I work? Not sure if you can see this, but this little omnibus program is a custom app my friend made. So it allows me to tweak the MIDI as it goes into the machine, so I could, you know, do all sorts of stuff with octaves, transpositions. I could change the scales of the MIDI I'm inputting. These are all creative tools I love to use to kind of, like I said, work quickly. And create ideas when I'm out of them. Sometimes you spend a lot of time working on a film, weeks go by, and you start running out of ideas. This helps you get across the finish line. Then I'm using Lemur here. I'm still getting adjusted to this new iPad setup. You know, with it where I could quantize, I could do all sorts of automation stuff. This is all custom to Pro Tools. And then this here is, you know, my monitor. It's actually using the Avid Control app. So it connects to my machine via Ethernet. It connects to the Matrix as well, so I can control that, and I can control Pro Tools as well. Okay, so this guy's basically done. I'm gonna hit stop because at this point it's more or less a repetitive pattern that's gonna fade out. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that. You know, like I said, you know, I'm very much someone who likes committing things and then sticking to it rather than having to go back and recall. I actually use For instance, I'm going to turn on polyphonic elastic audio here. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this basically allows you to treat audio in Pro Tools as you would in Ableton. So it'll stretch with any tempo changes. You could transpose it very easily on the fly. So that's one trick I have for being able to commit and then obviously being able to tweak it later. So let's take this other cool little piece of MIDI I have here. A different sound. I was playing with this earlier. Let me see. Let's go to a different preset here. Man, some of these patches just make it too easy. I just wrote a cue. If only we had this on Tron, we'd be done in a week. Something to remember too, if we're going to record orchestra on this, we want the orchestra and synths to live together in an interesting way. So the strings are going to be the real bulk of the pad, and so I want this pad to provide something else, something they're not going to do. This really slow with build up with a long release. That's something cool. And sometimes I might even jiggle this around to attack a little early so that the sound hits with the strings, or maybe the reverse. But anyway, this is something cool. I like what this is doing. See if I can increase the release a little bit. That's cool. Let's go ahead and get this down. Maybe this is getting down to audio. I'll tell you guys a story. I do want to listen to it though, so I'll put it in dim. What story can I tell you? Well, many years ago I was born. No, it's a terrible joke. A little bit about the studio here. I'm not sure how much you could see. You might be asking me, why am I touching the faders with a mouse when I have this mix surface here? Well, I actually use this mix surface to control the dialogue, effects, the balance. If I'm listening to temp music, I could turn that on. But I do have my click track here, so I could turn that on and off. So if I'm recording, I could use my click track. And then I also have it set to focus on whatever track is selected. So whatever track is selected shows up as this one last fader here, so I could do some mixing. So that's like some little tricks. I usually have on this fader here, it's not assigned right now, but on this fader I have kind of an overall music fader. So all my tracks are kind of ganged to this one fader, so I could mix the entire track to the dialogue. It's very important that you treat the dialogue of a film as the lead vocal in a song, because without the dialogue there is no movie. So we always need to make sure that our music works with the dialogue. That was actually one of the mistakes I used to make when I was much younger, was I would just turn off the dialogue and write whatever the heck I want, and then of course you turn the dialogue on and everything you're writing is conflicting with the dialogue. I started to notice if I write with the dialogue on, I keep it on as I write, I have a higher chance of making it work with my music, so that way when we do a final mix, it's much easier. It's much easier for the engineers. All right, that's recorded, that really cool pad. So let's go ahead and, what did I duplicate? Did I duplicate the wrong thing? Oh no, I just duplicated down here for some reason. Oh, it duplicated multiple tracks. Fun. Okay, so let's pretend I didn't do something stupid. Okay, so here we are. Let's see how this is sounding. So those two sounds are living together a little bit. Might have to do some EQ later just to make sure to keep them separated. Might also do some panning, some reverb to really get them mixed together properly, but I like where this is going. So now I want to record a lead sound. Let's see. for that lead. That's very cool. Now, something really important to note here. Other than being a pianist, I used to be a trombonist. I spent many hours sitting in the back of an orchestra, listening to an orchestra, watching the orchestra play. Trombonists, we don't play a lot, so my instrument was just sitting there and I'd watch the orchestra, I'd listen, I'd look at the scores. And so that really helps when I'm doing this kind of automation here. And so if you've never played in an orchestra, that's okay. Watch videos of orchestras playing. Watch videos of orchestras rehearsing. Go to orchestra concerts. Even better if you can, especially if you're in university, go to the rehearsals. Listen to the sections by themselves, because what I'm doing right now with expression, I'm trying to mimic the bow patterns. I'm trying to mimic what the string players are doing. And what also helps for me as a brass player, I sometimes breathe when I do this, so I know how I play this phrase as a brass player, and that's really important for you as a program. If you're doing this sort of programming, that you don't just willy-nilly leave the fader up, wherever, that you're breathing with your mock-up to make it sound convincing. So let's go ahead and record this last bit. Okay, cool. Looks like there's a little note thing there. What is that? Yes. Okay, so let's get the lead back in. See how these guys are working together. Or if they're not working together, sometimes we need to redo stuff. I'm gonna move the lead to the left. Sounding pretty cool, almost like the original, actually. Not bad. Last thing we'll program together are the brass. There's a lot of percussion happening as well, but I don't want this video to be 8 hours long. Okay, it takes a long time to program a cue like this. I'm just giving you a little peek under the hood. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm actually digging these new Chunky XL brass. Let's see, especially the horns. Let's see. You know what? Not the legatos. I'm going to need the straight ones. Not legatos. So let's go ahead and grab those. Let's grab our brass chords here. We'll be done with it. You're going to call me old-fashioned, but I love these Symphobia brass. Yes, I'm old-fashioned. Boo-hoo. There we go. Let's get those into my B track. Okay. Let's just get a level here. One thing I'd like to note here, if I had more time right now, I'd go ahead and actually cut off the ends of some of these notes, just because brass players need to breathe. A good programmer will know how to do that. So maybe I'll do that right now. I'll kind of give you, show you a little bit about what I do. I'd cut these notes here, just kind of do that. Let me re-quantize them so I can get that nice and even. Maybe I'll do it in groups of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll breathe after this note. Again, just kind of doing a little rushed here, so forgive me, just to give you an idea of how I work. Looks like I already did it there. But, if you're not doing stuff like this in your mock-up, it can never be truly realistic because the brass players need to breathe. They can't just sit there and play forever. So, okay, let's do this. Strong. Me, the brass player, always wanted to put the brass on top of it. Do with this mock-up to get there. You'll see this moving bass line. I'd really want to help make that more legato, bring that out. I'd use maybe a tuba patch as well as some cellos and basses to make that a thing. If I can recall, that's what I did. I might even put a horn patch on the top line of this brass to really let that shine, but you're just here with me for a couple hours, so can't quite do all that. So, here we are, we've done quite a bit of work. It's starting to really sound like a cue. I'm going to open up the original session. I didn't have my mode 1 back then, so you're not going to see any mode 1 here. But you'll see some of these synths here kind of doing what the mode 1 was doing. Percussion. Cool arpeggiated, or I should say sequenced kind of chopped chord. And then here down at the bottom you'll see, this is really just a 5-1 crash down of what we recorded. If I had the original orchestra session open, we'd have tracks all the way, back there, of orchestral mics. But, just to give you an idea of, a cue like this, when a movie's still changing as you're working on it, as this one was, as well as for mixing, sometimes you really want to have, well, not helicopters, that's a side effect of LA. When an edit's changing, you want to have flexibility, and so sometimes you almost have to treat the orchestra like Lego blocks. And it can make for some creative mixing too, but it's more about, working with a changing edit. So for instance, those are real strings. Can never do that with a computer. So this is one pass of strings. We actually have 3 more passes of strings. One being the arpeggiated pattern, high part of the arpeggiated pattern, the low strings. And then there was a really cool counter line in the arpeggiated patterns I didn't want to lose, so I actually recorded that separately. So those are the 3 sets of arpeggiated strings. Now you might be looking at me going, Joe, you're a classically trained orchestrator. What the hell are you doing? Well, yeah, you got to make it sound good in the room. That's where being an orchestrator helps, and having great orchestrators on your team helps. You want it to sound great in the room. That's number 1. But number two, when you need to do edits for a changing picture, or you want to do some creative mixing, and if you have the time, of course, why not record it like that? It's kind of cool. It takes up a lot of tracks, annoys some people, but hear all the strings together. Oh, do you hear that? Do you hear them breathing? That's kind of cool. That makes it real. Actually, here you could hear my my fake strings here. Let's see. Fake strings, but those are obviously muted for the final. That's pretty cool. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you guys, both for understanding how Film Composer works, kind of some of our tricks to actually getting the job done quickly and efficiently, and also professionally, and being able to maintain sanity on a crazy project. But also, thank you, Mo. Thank you for allowing me to share this with everyone. This thing is a great piece of kit. Love this Moog one. It's going to be a huge part of my studio moving forward. I hope this was helpful for some of you out there who have one already, or for those of you who are thinking of grabbing one. So anyway, I hope everyone out there is staying well and safe. I know it's a bit of a crazy time right now. That's why I'm here locked in my home studio. I'm not going anywhere soon. Being very careful, but sending my love out to all of you out there in Moog land and in music land. And I hope we talk again soon. It's Joe Trapanese. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
That was an incredible session, and we have a bonus for you. We've got about 5 minutes of time here, and we've got Joe joining us live, man. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
That was an awesome session, man. It was so cool watching how you build the score up and how you layer all those things together. Really, really incredible.
My pleasure. Happy to do that.
Yeah, so we've got some viewer questions actually that came in during your workshop there, and the first one concerns your gear. I know you touched on your iPads and some of the things, but the question is, tell us more about your monitor setup. Are you using stands? What kind of monitors do you have? You know, all that kind of stuff.
Some people make fun of me because I use some non-hip monitors. The hip monitors right now, a lot of people are using ATCs and PMCs, and they're fantastic speakers. They're great, but for me, my goal is that when I go to the dub stage, which is where the final music is mixed alongside the dialogue and the sound effects, I want to have a monitor set up that reproduces that. So I actually use JBLs. I have, I forgot the exact model number. They're passive. I amplify them with Brystons. I have Sunfire subs to extend each of the LCRs to the bass, into the bass range, as well as a 0.1 Sunfire as well sub. And the great thing about that is I'm not surprised when I go to a dub stage. When I go to a theater, my music sounds like it does in my room, and that's what's important to me. And obviously, if you're in pop music, mixing records, so to speak, that's a different world. The radio world is very different. So I'm very much geared towards the cinema world, so to speak.
Right. It's always about getting your sound to translate to the different places where it's going to be played or whatever, and you have to find the solution that works well for doing that. Obviously, you have. So that's very cool. The next question we have is about establishing emotion in a piece of music for a movie or a game. How do you start that process, or how do you decide how you're going to move forward with that process?
That's a great question. It's so subjective. I think the first thing you need to do is to have conversations with the filmmaker, because obviously different musical things mean different things to other people. For instance, I find the flute very beautiful, but I worked with the director recently who said, I hate the flute, please don't put it in the score. So, first of all, you want to learn some of the rules that you're working within, so to speak, the language of the film. But I think it's also important to spend time with the film, reading the script, watching picture and coming up with ideas on how to work with the emotions in that film, and then understanding what type of emotions the filmmaker wants to feel. So for instance, some films you might want the emotion to be what the lead character is feeling in that moment, but other times you might want to actually zoom out a little bit, so to speak, and be reflecting on what the character is feeling. So the character might be feeling sad, but you want the audience to be happy because it's good that the character is feeling sad. So obviously things could get complicated very quickly, but because it is human emotion, it's very subjective. It's based on conversations and how you react to the film and how you react to the filmmaker's reaction to the film, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, sure, makes total sense. So the next question that's come in is, when you start a session, you begin a new film or you start working on a score, are you using templates where all of the instruments are loaded in and then you're building from that, or do you start from just a blank slate?
So I have my orchestra templated. So that meaning that my whole all my orchestral sounds are in a template. So that's ready to go. But usually on the films that I'm known for, I'm asked for quote unquote hybrid sound, so I have to come up with new sounds and new textures for each film. So I kind of create a template, so to speak, at the beginning of the film, but that's evolving throughout. So it's a mix for me. I have some things templated, but each film I do has its own sound and its own voice. So I have to kind of build a new template from scratch for that film.
Right. We've got just a few seconds left here, and I guess I'll ask a question. So many of our viewers and so many of the people I talk to want to get into film scoring. They want to start working in that world. Do you have tips for someone who wants to get started?
Absolutely. Develop your skill set with the technical side of things. Obviously, we use all sorts of software like Logic, Cubase, Pro Tools, anything you could bring to the table in that regard. Vienna, Native Instruments, are all these tools. So obviously technical, but then also building up a skill set where you could maybe do an arrangement, prep parts, that sort of thing. And finally, you want to set yourself up for success, meaning get yourself to a film scoring hub, whether it's London or Los Angeles or New York. There are places where films happen, and you want to put yourself there. I know we're obviously in a COVID world, we're all working remotely, but hopefully soon you'll be able to get yourself to these places.
Right. Man, thanks so much. We appreciate you taking time. It just flies by when we start talking about this stuff and get some questions.
Well, we'll have to do it again.
I think that'd be awesome, man. I hope we can do an extended interview at some point, because obviously you have a wealth of experience to share with us. So, and we just appreciate so much you taking the time to do this for us today at GearFest 2020. It's great to see you.
My pleasure. Till next time. Thank you.
Take care.